The Big Biller Summit 2010, Mark Whitby interviewing Mike Gionta. This is a précis of, for me, the bullet points, the salient points. It was titled 6 Easy Steps to Adding 6 Figures or More to Your Billing. For my money, I think there's a lot more information. He talks about goals, motivation, self-analysis and personal development. What I'm going to try and do is give you the bare bones without necessarily having to listen to the whole hour, although I would suggest that you might want to get into that as well. He gives 3 points that if you only listen to these and you turn it off after that, you'd have got your money's worth. Number 1, he says, do whatever it takes to speak to 15 to 20 people every day. Now, he's not talking just about prospective clients or existing clients. He's talking about people, so it could be a mixture of candidates and organisations. Number 2, he says arrange 2 to 3 first-time interviews every week. And number 3, this will sound easy, but a lot of people struggle with this, study recruiting techniques 45 minutes a day. And that's it. If you do all these 3 things, you will not fail. So getting into the meat of his presentation. Firstly, he talks about goal setting. Now I'm going to read some of this out. Improving the quality of your goal setting exercise is not where the problem lies. So what he's saying here is don't worry so much about being better at setting goals. Now, the outcome isn't necessarily about knowing what you're looking for, it's about what action you take. So which of our habits are we really prepared to change permanently and forever? He says it again, which of our habits are we really prepared to change forever? So for example, he talks about email. If you want to make calls first thing in the morning, turn your email off. It can be a bit like a narcotic or a drug, so he closes Outlook. So his ambition is to make his first calls at 8:30 in the morning, come what may, whether it be to candidates or clients. Now, we know that discussing goals is stimulating, inspiring and energising, but it feels tough and awkward to discuss the discipline needed to reach the goals. It's great to say you want to get yourself a new Audi TT within the next 9 months, but when you work out exactly what you've got to do to get that, how much cash you need and exactly what you need to do to make that happen, that's when people get unstuck. That's when they're not prepared to commit to whatever it takes. So he talks about the fact that just have diets have flaws, so does each solution you will come up with. But which, when integrated into your day, can you adopt it as a central part of your business lifestyle? So if you know that for every 3, 4, 5 first interviews, you will get 1 starter, and you need to get 4 actual starters in a month to make your target, to get you that Audi TT, that's what you've got to break it down into your week or your day. Most people aren't prepared to commit to that because they know it takes hard work. And he says there's no shame in being average. There's no shame in just being competent if you're unwilling to pay the price of excellence. But don't mislead yourself, your spouse, your manager, your colleagues or your clients with time-wasting, demoralising attempts. Don't convince them that you're actually committed to the goal if you are not yourself. Now, here's what he says he's learned. One of the things I've learned from studying goal setting, reading and researching other people who've mastered this, in the absence of a defined goal in the future that you have tied into specific events occurring in your life or specific things you want to accomplish, what happens is as soon as you've paid the bills, maybe you've got a little bit of extra money towards Christmas, that's it. You've got the month over and you relax. People don't actually push themselves. They might have a desire for an Audi TT, but it's not really a passion. They're not committed to it for a specific time. So they'll do just enough to pay their way. And the problem in a lot of businesses is that the basic wage will just about pay for your living expenses. And unfortunately, that isn't the kind of person that is going to go off and get the Audi TT if they're just happy to get by on their basic wage. So what he's talking about is that he says, when I see that happen, I see activity drop with people because they've solved their immediate problem. The immediate problem is the month's overhead or the mortgage payments or whatever the month's rent happens to be. Now, the second point he talks about is once you've developed your vision you've really got to want it. You've really got to be prepared to get out of bed and work for it in the morning. Now, people don't actually work out exactly what the extra money means. So if they want to bill, I know, £150,000 in permanent billing, yeah, how much will they actually keep? You've got to work out after tax. Let's supposing you say you want to earn £50,000, but you've only ever earned £25,000. Well, what would you actually do with an extra £15,000 cash in your pocket? Most people don't know. It's not really enough to them, which is why you've got to think about what you're going to do with the money. Just having a goal for earning extra money isn't really enough. Now, focusing on placements. Mike Gionta, very sharp with this, and it's worth a listen, but the précis points are that most people focus on making placements, and he sees this as the mortal sin of recruiting. By that, what he means is that we can't control the number of placements. The only thing we can actually control is our activity at the front end. Now, you can control minus 10 or 20% of your revenue business, but essentially, I've lost my track a little bit here, so forgive me. Right, here we go. We can influence our placements to a degree based upon our skill, by communication and so forth. But when it comes down to relying upon other people, even if your candidate's sworn a stack of Bibles that are actually going to accept an offer and start, you know what? It doesn't happen. Well, that's what recruitment's like. We have to accept that. The only thing that we can do is by actually work on our activity levels. That's what you can affect. Now, do you need to make more calls? Do you need to make more presentations to companies? You've got to do a whole bunch of things to actually control your income. But you can control your income on the number of calls you make and the effort that you actually put in. He talks about the fact that most people think that they've got to become better. They've got to do more calls. But they don't give things a specific number. You've got to build into your planner. And what we do at Orchard is we actually have specific KPIs for individuals based upon their ratio. So we can work out with our recruiters exactly how many calls they need to make for that individual to make a placement. How many first-time interviews they need to arrange to get someone to start in a business. It's not just about being better or working harder. It's about knowing the numbers. These in American speak are called metrics. That's what will predict your business. And in fact, what you find is that if people have had a really bad month, they get frustrated. And actually, when you look at the numbers, often they then make less calls the next month, the next quarter, when in fact they need to be pushing harder and getting through to more people. So it's not just about refining your ability in terms of technique, it's about working out how much of it you've actually got to do. So when you combine the two together, getting better and also knowing your numbers, then you're unstoppable. He also talks about working out how do you actually go about upping the numbers. If traditionally you can only get 3 first interviews every week and you know that you need 4 or 5 to hit your targets, you've got to work out what you need to do. Do you need more people through the door? Perhaps you need to be better at presenting to your clients. Maybe you've got to qualify your candidates better. Maybe the references, the background reports that you take up have got to be more detailed. So think about that as well. He also talks about slowly increasing your numbers. At the moment, if you're getting 3 first interviews, you need to get 6. Well, doing it overnight is really hard. So maybe for the next month you move it up to 4 first interviews, and then you move it up to 5 and then 6 over a 2-3 month period. That's a lot easier. Chunking it down is easier than doing it all in one go. Now this is interesting. He talks about having a general outline of training for yourself. Now we're going to try and put something together like this in our company. But wouldn't it be a good idea if you knew specifically what you needed to do to improve your ability, your technique, over, let's say, a 3, 6, 9 or 12 month period? If you do a training session and you've got a whole bunch of ideas, you might write them in your journal in your training manual, but you might not necessarily actually implement them. And trying to do it all in one go is really hard. But if you chunk it down and break down these particular areas of improvement that you need to work on for yourself, you're much more likely to achieve it. And he says they should be in writing. Having it in your head is just not good enough. Now, running an office, Mike Gionta has a 30 to 45 minutes with his staff at least 3 times a week working on training and development. Now, a lot of people accuse me of wanting to build an American-style recruitment business with massive numbers. But when you look at the philosophy, what these guys are doing, it's just plain common sense. Let's work on becoming more effective. Let's improve our technique. Let's focus on our ratios. And these guys, when they're doing the big numbers, it's not by sheer mistake or chance they're doing it. There's a method, and we can learn from this. What they also do is they talk about the training they've been looking at, and they've got a big library, and over a period of time they'll have a discussion about a particular theme, kick it around the table and say, right, what 1, 2 or 3 things can we all implement over the next couple of weeks? And if you do that over a year period, the improvement, the incremental improvement tends to be significant over a year. So whether you're an individual or an owner or a manager, he talks about working out what your objectives are and then breaking it down into quarterly, monthly and weekly periods. And then he says, have a 15-minute meeting with yourself, whether it be once a week or once every fortnight, and just work out, are you actually on track in terms of hitting your numbers, and indeed, can you improve them, and how would you do that? But only you can really do this. Only you can be really honest with yourself. It's the same with personal development. He says that if it's only half an hour, 3 days a week, you will add so much to your ability, and that will pay dividends. Most people rely upon the employer to train and development, and whilst we've got a commitment to that, surely the employee must be prepared to put themselves out as well to learn. If you're in your car, you can listen to something. If you're at home, you can watch maybe a 15-20 minute DVD or listen to something or pick up a book. Now, he also talks about not only looking towards the future and analysing what you need to do to achieve your targets, he also talks about reviewing the past and doing a bit of an autopsy on your last quarter. If you had a great quarter, well, work out what your numbers are. If you struggled, if you didn't have such a good month or a good quarter, work out why that was. It won't just be by chance. Maybe you didn't make enough first-time interviews, maybe you didn't make enough business development calls, maybe you didn't register enough candidates. So he's saying, look at what you've done before. He says, there's no dishonour in failure. There's only a dishonour in failing to learn from it. I like that. He says most people that fail, it's because their execution is, in his words, wretched. So he looks at it and says, look, here's what you did, here's what happened, this is why, let's stop doing that. So if you've got some problems, work it out. Why are you failing? Stop doing whatever it is that's tripping you up. Look back and find out, what did I learn? You don't want to be a victim. And he says there's no parent saying the economy stunk, I lost my biggest account, I had 3 counter offers. Well, that's about recruitment. You just got to deal with that. If you're in this business, that's what happens. But you know what? It's about what you do in the face of that. And he's often heard, oh, no one's hiring. Even in good economies, well, how many employers are you actually talking to? And what he's found out is the people that say, oh, no one's hiring, when you look at the key numbers, they're only talking to a couple of people a day. Well, that's not enough of a sample. There are still people leaving jobs, retiring, falling pregnant, being promoted, relocating. Those people need to be replaced with excellent people, not just anybody from the job centre or the unemployment line. Companies want exceptional people these days. So he challenges us to define a vision for yourself. And what is this going to mean over the next year, 3, 5 years? What do you actually want? If you just want to pay your bills and go on holiday, well, that's okay, but know what the number is for that. But maybe there's something else you can do to take yourself to a higher level. Once you set yourself a vision, it's about working out what really has to happen. What pain are you prepared to pay to make that vision actually reality? and then test it. Does it feel like you can actually do it? And make it happen. What he said was, I kind of like this. Be a player, not a whiner and a talker. I can always tell when some people, when I know they're going to be fairly mediocre, these are the ones that come out pounding the chest from training, telling everybody how wonderful they are. A lot of the most successful people he knows are the most humble individuals, some of the most sharing people with their information. So do it, execute it, accomplish it, then brag about it. Don't say how wonderful you're going to be in advance. Tell people how great you were after you did it. He also talks about a recruitment CSI, doing an autopsy. So if there's a deal that goes wrong, all the recruiters and the managers sit around the table and they talk about what went wrong. Was there enough commitment from the client, from the candidate? Were the fees agreed in advance? Did we have terms of business? Not to give the recruiter whose deal went wrong a hard time, but so that everybody can learn from that situation. I know football teams do this on a regular basis. If they lose, they look at the video, they work out exactly how strong the other team were and what they could have done better. So he talks also about not necessarily recreating things from the previous month, if you had a really good month, a really good quarter, but work out in future what you can do. And if you haven't got a written plan, you're probably not going to make it happen. So there you go. That was, for me, the bullet points, the best bits of Mike Gionta's Big Biller Summit 2010. I suggest you actually listen to the audio in detail. There's also a transcript available. Good luck.